Hey you, so I have a quick update on the Dragon Phoenix mint error coins that I done a video on last time. So I've been in contact with a few dealers and I've also tried to contact the Perf Mint themselves. So I'll let you know the information that I've had back from these dealers and the Perf Mint. So I have some definite answers back, so there's less guesses and assumptions out there. So I'll start off by basically saying I did contact the Perf Mint regarding these. I sent them an email and I've had no response. The Perf Mint are still playing real bashful. They're not responding, giving no information out there. So that's where the Perf Mint stand on this. An individual did contact, I believe it was NGC, and brought to my attention that they had told him they don't know nothing about the error or any type of die variation. So that's from another individual who's contacted the grading companies themselves. So that's where the grading companies and the Perf Mint stand from my point of view. I've personally contacted Perf Mint, they've not got back to me, and this individual's contacted the grading companies and they said they know nothing about a die variation. I'll bring it up in a minute, as somebody had suggested that this error was a die variation that the Perf Mint had full knowledge of. So the grading company knows nothing about a die variation or anything of the like. So I've contacted a few dealers in Europe that I know stock the coin, I purchased the coin from, and they had similar but interesting reports back. So first of all, I'll start off by saying the Perf Mint, from their actions to me, states that they either was aware that they did make a boo-boo, but they don't want to address it. So they're going about this approach by dealing with this as quietly as possible, and it's somewhat understanding. As I was explaining to somebody last time, the Perf Mint are not known for doing die variations or making mint errors. To me, I would call them the best mint out there. So the fact that this mistake has popped up on a very low mintage coin is somewhat surprising for me and to the dealers I brought it to their attention to. So I've contacted a few dealers that had the coins in stock, and the first they knew about this was when I've made contact with them. And so through corresponding with these dealers, we've come to find out that the batch that was affected was the first wave of the batch of the coins that went out. So, and we know this because a dealer, I believe, has about a couple of boxes left and only one box from the initial first wave that he received. And it's that only box that he has officially 100 error coins himself left over. So when I've spoken with these dealers, they've contacted me and I've contacted them, and they've told me basically, they contacted me that they've contacted the Perf Mint, and the Perf Mint has taken the same cold shoulder approach in stating that they should contact the dealer that they purchased the coins from. And so the dealer that they purchased the coins from was the main authorized dealer to distribute these coins, and I believe that was LPM. So that's Luscious Precious Metal. That's the Asian dealer that was commissioned these coins, from what I understand. So when they've been told by the Perf Mint, which is strange for the Perf Mint to communicate with them in this way, I've been told, as they're normally very helpful, they've just been told to contact the dealer that they got the coins from. And these dealers have obviously made the Perf Mint aware of this error, asked them about it, and they've just basically said contact the dealer you got the coins from. So as dealers have taken this approach, LPM have made it aware to them that they have recently become aware of the error also, and they've stated that the dealers are to send them the error coins, or any dealer that has these error coins, and they will replace them with normal coins. So they are aware. They also are not talking on how this came about and how many are affected. So from what I gather, the Perf Mint and LPM have obviously spoke about this error, and between the both of them want to handle this as quietly as possible. Understandably so. The Perf Mint have made a boo-boo. What they've told dealers, they had no prior knowledge of this, so they did make this aware to the dealers. So they have given that answer to the dealers that they didn't know about this, but they must have known about it for them to correct it at some point. So whether they're going to come out and make this public to everybody else, it's going to be a small amount of coins that were affected. I've also been told, as I said before, it was a small first early batch. Also, on a flip note, I did mention that to somebody that I had intended to open up a roll, because technically I can only say I have 5 error coins. I don't know the one behind and so forth is also an error, but a dealer did confirm that if you do have a sealed roll and your first coin is an error, then the rest of the batch is going to be an error. So he's 99.9% sure if you've got a roll and if the first one's an error, the entire roll is going to be an error. So that was confirmed also. The approach the dealers are taking on this is that they're going to be holding on to their error coins. They're shocked, very shocked. They obviously know that there will be some opportunity to capitalize on this if mintage numbers ever do come out on how many were affected. So the approach they're taking is they're not going to be releasing no more of the error coins from the dealers I did know that had them. Other dealers wasn't aware, but they've also stated they would have been aware before. They would not have released them. They would have held on to them. So the approach the dealers are taking is that these can be somewhat of a real opportunity to capitalize at a later date. So I've not spoken to no American dealers myself, but if you do order them sometime in the near future and you receive an error, consider yourself lucky, because a lot of the dealers now, the main distributor now is aware of them, and they're holding them, they're holding on to them, so they're not releasing them. So that's where the dealers stand. Where do we stand? A couple of points were put across last time that some individuals made the assumption or thought that the mint was aware of this and they'd done it intentionally or unintentionally and it was a die variation. I have got confirmation that that's not the case. This was not a die variation. I call it a mint error because it's an error on the coin, as it hasn't come out as it was originally destined to be. So I'm calling it as I see it. The dealers I've been speaking to are calling it a mint error, but nobody knows what it actually means. But everybody understands how you can financially gain or capitalize from an error. So everyone's taking the approach of locking them down and holding on to them if they do have them. So once again, if you have one, you have one. If you don't, you don't. What does it mean? Only time will tell. Dealers are more than willing to hold on to them for months or years and then see where it ends from there. Will the perf mint ever come forward and state what the actual situation is? We don't know. From what I know of, it's the first time they've made a boo-boo like this. The coin is already a very, very, very limited coin, with the bulk of it going to the Asian market, and it's selling very well out there from what I understand. So the first wave, the first big batch was affected, so you may want to double check your batch. Don't expect to be receiving any more errors, as a lot of the dealers are aware of this now and they're holding and locking down those batches there. So will we find out how many were affected in time? Maybe. The dealers are onto the perf mint also. I understand LPM isn't the most, or the best at communicating with other dealers, so we won't know what happens there, but you can believe that perf mint and LPM are aware of this, but they're just keeping it very quiet. So it's not something that was intended or something that the China mint does as a die variation or anything of the sort. So that's the information I've gotten back from the dealers and the perf mint. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. Once again, I'm not error rousing and there's no hype. It just is what it is, and I just wanted to put forward what I found out. So if anybody else has found anything out or can contribute anything to this, it would be great to know in the comments. If you haven't subscribed, it'd be greatly appreciated if you do, and I'll catch you guys on the rebound.